Radha-Jana-Ranjana, Jaya Yashoda-Nandana, Jaya Radha-Jana-Ranjana, Jaya Yamuna-Tiravanachari, Jaya Kunja-Bihari, Jaya Yamuna-Tiravanachari, Jaya Kunja-Bihari, Jaya Yamuna-Tiravanachari, Jaya Kunja-Bihari, Jaya Yamuna-Tiravanachari, Jaya Kunja-Bihari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Geht weiter. Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda, 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 Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So glory to Sri Chaitanya and Nityananda, glory to Advaita Chandra, and glory to all the devotees of Sri Gaura Lord Chaitanya. Haribol. So Hare Krishna, dear devotees, I will speak in English. Shorikund understands English. We read today from Sri Caitanya-Caritamrta Adi Leela 3, verse 97, chapter 3, which is entitled The External Reasons for Lord Chaitanya's Appearance. So, by divine arrangement, we have the verse up here, So we do line by line, order? Or word? I think there's not so much time today, so I do the line and we repeat. Ke papa ke punya kare vishaya bhoga. Ke papa ke punya kare vishaya bhoga. Bhakti ganda nai yata yaya bhavaroga. Bhakti ganda nai yata yaya. Keha, someone. Pape, in sinful activities. Keha, someone. Punya, in pious activities. Kare, do. Vishaya, of the sense objects. Bhoga, enjoyment. Bhakti ganda, a trace of devotional service. Nahi, there is not. Yate, by which. Yaya, goes away. Bhava roga, the disease of material existence. Okay, so the translation by Srila Prabhupada. Okay. Everyone was engaged in material enjoyment, whether sinfully or virtuously. No one was interested in the transcendental service of the Lord, which can give total relief from the repetition of birth and death. Here's the purport by Srila Prabhupada. Advaita Acharya saw the entire world to be engaged in activities of material piety and impiety, without a trace of devotional service or Krishna consciousness anywhere. The fact is that in this material world, there is no scarcity of anything except Krishna consciousness. Material necessities are supplied by the mercy of the Supreme Lord. We sometimes feel scarcity because of our mismanagement, but the real problem is that people are out of touch with Krishna consciousness. Everyone is engaged in material sense gratification, but people have no plan for making an ultimate solution to their real problems, namely birth, disease, old age and death. Yes, you already know. These four material miseries are called bhava roga, or material diseases. They can be cured only by Krishna consciousness. Therefore, Krishna consciousness is the greatest benediction for human society. Om Gyanantimirandascha Kiranasalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shikrave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Shritam Vina Bhutele Shramurupakaramayam Tadesha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Swati Gaur Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, dear devotees, still here. So this verse is called the external reasons. Oh, yeah. A little bit. Would you mind? Yeah. You can start, but not. Thank you. You're so kind. Need the blessings of the devotees and Lord Nrsingadev and Lord Chaitanya here. So this verse, okay, we don't have so long. The external reason, one of the external reason, a very important one, was that Advaita Acharya saw that basically there was almost no Krishna consciousness in the world. People were engaged completely in their material lives, be it suffering or enjoying, but there was very little consciousness that there was Krishna in the world. And in this, in that moment where we don't see Krishna in our lives or feel the presence of something higher, then often when we get to this point of what is happening in the last couple of years of suffering, it's bewildering. But actually Vedic scriptures say that distress is not accidental. When we question the reason of why we are suffering, why are we stuck in this material life, then we inquire about the very reason of our existence. So in the Bhagavad Gita, on the purport, I think it's chapter 2.7, yes, Srila Prabhupada writes, by nature's own way, the complete system of material activities is a source of perplexity for everyone. You know this word perplexity? Like, yeah, oh, super, dann hast du. Later on, it's like a forest fire that somehow blazes without being set by anyone. Similarly, the world situation is such that perplexity, of life automatically appear without our wanting such confusion. Nobody wants fire, and yet it takes place, and we become perplexed. I always used to ask this question before, if there's a God, then why are we suffering, huh? And at one point it was too much, and I said, then it can't be a God. It was not the best way, but I felt like I made a decision. If he wanted to show himself, then he had to come in a different way. But I did not have the intelligence yet, hopefully we get there a little while, of what Prabhupada writes. Actually, it's in the journey of self-discovery at the beginning. He writes, we should be intelligent enough to ask, why am I suffering? And how can I stop this suffering? And he writes, and until we ask, why am I suffering, our human life has not begun. In this way, in a similar light, C.S. Advaita Acharya saw the world is in darkness just simply because we're engrossed in material existence. And later on you read that he said he felt compassion of how the world could be benefited. This is the very next verse, yeah. Yeah, seeing the activities of the world, the Acharya felt compassion and began to ponder, so to wonder, how we could act for the people's benefit. It's also very interesting as we approach Gaura Punim, the appearance day of Lord Chaitanya, that this is the avatar for this age. This is there's a real importance to the appearance of Lord Chaitanya. So as you can see, I have Indian background. I grew up with Krishna in the background. I was trying to think when I knew that Krishna, this little boy, little naughty, stealing butter, was God. And it was always there. This is God. Like, this was it. Nrsimhadev came a little bit later in my life, and Lord Chaitanya came even more later, when I was in my early 20s, so around 20 years ago. I went to the temple, Soho Street Temple, which have beautiful deities that were installed by Srila Prabhupada, Sri Sri Radhalandaneshwara. And the deities were beautiful. Some very small temple room. But I was transfixed on this picture. You see our Panchatattva picture here? There is a replica, but painted very large, to the right of the altar there in Soho Street. So a young person, a little bit older than Nina or something, went in, and I looked at this picture, and it somehow freaked me out, I didn't really understand. I just basically left the temple. So, why did you leave the temple? Somebody asked. And I was like, I don't know. It actually took me almost a year to come back again. Because basically what does happen to some of us, when you grow up in a certain religion, a lot of complacency goes about. I know, that's Krishna, you're Radharani, Nrsimhadev. And for me, there was Radha, Krishna, and they somehow were absorbed in their pastimes. It was not that it was so personal somehow to me. And Nrsimhadev, he was directly for Prahlad Maharaj, but there Lord Chaitanya seemed to be looking directly at me. You see this picture of Panchatattva. He's really looking directly out at us, That's the point there. In this avatar, he comes, not with some sharp claws or whatever superpowers Krishna has, but he comes with his own potency of showing us by example. No, I don't have to quote. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu descends to propagate the chanting of the holy name and spread love of God. This is Adi 4, text 5. So in this moment I felt this compassion mood. Recently I think a lot about as you live longer a little bit in the temple, and one can always fall into this complacency mode. What is it about Lord Chaitanya and what he has given us? What is it in these moments we see people suffering for 2 years? It was the topic of coronavirus. Now we begin in our hardship with the war that goes on in Ukraine. But in this moment, it's like a global suffering. In the years before, like the 8 years before the last, we somehow blocked it out as devotees somehow. We lived in our own space and time and our focus. But we saw with Corona how the devotees became divided, vaccinated, not vaccinated, do like this, don't like, different. The contemplation, the consciousness was so much in the material suffering. And for me personally, when I cannot take something too much, I just block it out. But it's a little bit like, living with a blanket over your head, And actually at one point you take the blanket off, and then at one point this question comes, but why am I suffering? Why is it so difficult? What's going on here? If I am trying to be a devotee on this path, what is it that is stopping me from feeling this bliss of Krishna consciousness, this bliss of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? And I realized it was just absorption in the wrong information. This information about this person's been sick and dying and what happens and what's going on. And like I said, I blocked it out. But sometimes when I came home, there's Ramananda listening to another message of somebody who wants prayers to Lord Chaitanya. Someone's just about to leave their body. Prayers here, miracle here. Somebody calling him from Reha, suffering, next person. And I was like, Ramananda, I don't actually want to hear this. It's just, blocking me. And he looked at me like, what is happening? Like, what do you mean? This is normal. And it was one time he was speaking to somebody who was close to leaving their body. So he was speaking to this person directly. And he was speaking in a very gentle way, but in a very matter-of-fact way. Yes, you may pass or you may stay. But we have to see what is your next journey, what is the next path, be it in this body or another body. And I was a little bit like, oh my goodness, it's like 8, 9 o'clock in the evening. I don't know if I want to really hear. But parts kept dripping down. Okay, what is it? I can shut my eyes and my head and my ears off. I can plug myself out of Facebook, social media. But still, this matter comes up. People are suffering. People send pictures of relatives, all sorts of stuff is happening. And what is it that I can do? What is it that Prabhupada is indicating when he says I have to question this? And in this, when I sort of through Lord Advaitacharya, he gets the point that people are suffering, we don't know how to get out of it. What does he do? He prays. He prays for the Lord to appear, to help us, for us to be benefited. There are many different devotees who speak about the power of prayers. One is Swami, His Holiness Sachinanda Swami. I've listened to, just by chance, a lot of sort of SoundCloud shots, these sound bits of the importance of praying. And someone here, I don't know if it was in management, said, yeah, I told someone I would pray for them, and they said, what are you, your prayers? Is that, I don't think anyway the Lord hears. This was some time ago, and I thought, okay, but we're devotees, I chant my round, you come to program, like this, but still, the consciousness is in some, either rajas, okay, let's do something, or tamagun, let's go to sleep and forget about it, or what's going on here. So it's like I'm a practical person. I thought, let me begin this path of prayer, this way of going a bit deeper into this idea of vandanam, There's a whole book, actually. It was a very nice book. I found it many years ago, or I bought. And it speaks a lot. We have prayers from the acharyas, prayers of what we do, but also a passage also for personal prayers that, to go deeper. And I hope the Lord didn't mind, but for me, I sort of theoretically thought maybe it could work. I wasn't completely convinced that prayers get answered. But I thought, okay, dear Lord Nishingadev, let's try. I prayed for different matters which I had actually tried to resolve with all of my therapeutic training and experience in my life and different matters. And somehow, it was either solved, but in a very unfulfilling way, or it was just, a little bit of a mess. And I prayed specifically on different things which actually would actually also help me to serve the Lord better. And I reflected also that Lord Chaitanya Nityananda appeared here, here specifically around 6 years ago, something like this. They came. And I fought at the time to keep them here. Some of you know, I think, Samir, I really had to fight to keep them here. The temple president even at times said, forget about it. But somehow I was just like, no, we cannot lose these deities of Lord Chaitanya Nityananda. We need them here. You know, with Lord Chaitanya, he's Lord Nrsimhadev, he's established here, but Lord Chaitanya Nityananda. I thought, but why to go in this endeavor when I don't know if I feel so much of a connection, you know? And one realized that in running around doing a lot of service and Jai and Nrsimhadev, which is the most beautiful avatar, one can easily slip the more subtle qualities of Lord Chaitanya. This idea of mercy being given to those who are the most fallen. That is Lord Chaitanya Nityananda. This element of kindness, this part of compassion and of mildness, was all these elements of Lord Chaitanya Nityananda. And they are also later to explain as part of 26 qualities that we should also try to have as devotees. And this was quite fundamental in my understanding to shift what's happening. You know, usually if there's a war, yeah, maybe I like it or not, but there's a bit of a Kshatriya spirit among some of us. Okay, there's a war, let's fight. What's up? You know, let's fight, let's go. But this is not the solution of this age. I thought maybe. I thought these prayers, come on, do they work? I really tell you, I had experience where prayers really work when they are done with real sincerity, that you really mean it, you know, that you really want it to improve yourself or to get better. When those prayers, you get, you know, really, you see the reciprocation of the Lord. And in those moments where I thought, okay, if there's people are suffering, and it's a bit selfish, of course, but they suffer and then I am also suffering, huh? Because you're both in the same consciousness then. What is it that's wrong? Let me take me out of this equation. If somebody is suffering and there is something I can do, what is our way? And that was where we thought of prayers. Out of compassion, we begin now, for example, the chanting of the Nrsimha-Kavatchas every day. It is a little fierce, but actually it's in this mood for the welfare of the devotees. There's also another quality of devotees. What is the point now? Here, do we see Lord Chaitanya? Or are we waiting for next week, next Friday, when he really appears to us? When he really appears and lights us up so much on the inside that we are protected from the experience of all of these calamities in this world. Because that's not going to stop in one sense. That's not the point of this material world. But one understanding to come out and to step away from this consciousness is a very essential tool to be out of this misery. And that was the part that I thought. In these moments where I'm so caught up in this material side, let me just take a few moments, breathe, and then to think again, what is it that can change my experience, if not for my life, but for today? What can change my experience today and then tomorrow and the next day? Most of us want to know what's going to happen with the rest of our lives. But once I heard in the lecture, actually most of us are only presented with the steps in front of us. If we can make those steps in front of us full of Lord Chaitanya's mercy, his bliss, his strength, then that's already one step forward. That was my conclusion. That it's not some big element of changing our whole life, but just step by step, day by day, shifting slowly the consciousness less on the material stuff, but directly on Lord Chaitanya and how it can be helped. When there are problems in our life, to appeal to him in this form, to pray, to to see with compassion that others suffer, and sometimes we don't even understand how to help them, but the Lord knows, and as we work as His instrument, we can somehow help them. Yeah. Questions, comments? What do you think, Samira? Yeah. Jai! Shri Shri Brother Lakshmi Nrsingadev! Jai! Jai! Sorry, wait. No, because it's online. So
I know.
and then people will like,
I don't want them to hear me. Okay, so I really like the point you mentioned, like thinking like step by step, because sometimes life is overwhelming, and also experiencing life in different aspects or what is going on in the outside world, it's sometimes so overwhelming that you just lose yourself in it, like you feel helpless, like you don't know what to do, like who are you to make any change. So thank you for making the point of thinking like step by step, and actually shifting your consciousness in the spiritual consciousness. And yeah, just also I think what is also very important is like by doing the work on ourselves and pray and strengthen our faith in the Lord, then I think in this kind of journey, life will become more bright. Yeah, that's what I want to share, and thank you for opening up this beautiful topic. It's so present, and it's nice to have a space to talk about it. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't translate in German. Ich habe so viel gesagt. Möchtest du etwas dazu sagen?
Danke für die Worte.
Kishore?
Nicht zu sagen.
Okay. Magst du was sagen? War da was Wichtiges dabei?
sometimes I was looking, wow, so many amazing things to say of Lord Chaitanya. But if we cannot relate what we hear to our daily lives, it begins like we're living two different lives. One which has God in it and one without. So part of this is to bridge that gap over, this step by step to realize. And Samira, very nicely on your point of shifting to spiritual consciousness, it's taken me a long while to understand that getting oneself emotionally together and emotional consciousnness does not lead necessarily to spiritual consciousness. They're still two different elements, because for sure sometimes I think, I'm not sure if it was maybe my first time as a devotee in this lifetime. I think in many lives before I was a sort of healing person maybe, or esoteric something, that worked to benefit others somehow, but not in this way. And I realized, wow, the strength and the power that I got from Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda in this actually very subtle way of, hey you, what are you doing with your life? Don't you get it's about God? Like this part was missing before somehow, and this makes so many changes in our lives. It's amazing. I only came here really honestly because again it was a bit of an experiment. Not 100% convinced, but I'll give it a go. Yeah. So it's like, if we're doing that, really giving it a go, then give everything you have. If it doesn't work for you, you have loads of other lifetimes to do something else. So this was it. And this basic philosophy, sorry, I am not elevated in understanding other things, but sometimes I find people come to me because it's relatable. Yeah, I'm not the best, but the Lord keeps me here. And so slowly, some part penetrates deeper. Yeah? And somehow I know in a deeper way there is so much more peace within me and joy than I had, say, 10 years ago. So these are subtle differences, but one sees that internally one is not rocked as much because the Lord appears in some way. One has to really pray. And if you notice in this time, things just take a little bit more endeavor. Today we did the Nishinga prayers at 5 o'clock Ramanand, and there was no internet. The curtain was shut. There was no internet. They said there won't be internet. It was like, okay, no internet. We can't do it. And it was like, okay, no. Maybe something. Amrita came. Maybe we can do some, what's it, hotspot, something like this. Okay. Something like this. They shifted backwards and forwards. And they tried a little bit more. And they could do it. It was broadcasted live. It was okay. We could not see it on time, but here it was broadcast. One has to make that more endeavor than usual, and one gets then also much more spiritual. Actually, I prayed, said, Nishingadev, please help. We want to do this kavacha. It looks like, the lights were off here. Okay, it looks like it's not happening. Please help, please help, please help, please help, please help. I never used to do this 5 years ago. I thought, I can't approach the Lord. But He hears the answers and made it possible. A small example of today, but just it was like, aha, and the part that came was, aha, you're really there. You're really there. Okay, ich gehe jetzt. Thank you. Yes. You want to say something? Yes. Oh, without microphone. Small everyday stuff. This is super important. I think it's really important because, I heard on this. When you pray to the Lord, even if the prayers are not 100% pure or whatever, it's still part of you surrendering it over to Him. So, you see, you're like saying, it's like me saying, I want this chadar. I want this chadar, but it's not mine. I can't take it. But every day you see this chadar and you meditate on this chadar. To the point, it's not such a great chadar, but this is the point, it's actually from Vrindavan. But you point at chadar. Oh, you think chadar, Hare Krishna, Hare Chadar, I want that chadar, I can have this chadar. So basically, you understand, I'm not saying you're like this, but you understand the consciousness is not on the Lord. So you see, your mind or whatever it may be or your desires are compromising your path to the Lord. At that point, one then goes to the Lord to say, it's like hi, help, I know I shouldn't want this chadar, but I really do. My part that I actually did it in regards to a future marriage, was, dear Lord, I don't know if I should take this step or not. Either make it possible for me or pacify me so I can serve you better. I don't know about you also sometimes I get in front of Lord Nishingadev. I think I'll pray and then I get stage fright. I go like, ugh, I can't ask. And what helped me was also to write the prayer. Then you can rearrange it that it's not just I want this or I want, but like a little like, I believe that I need this in my life, dear Lord, but I don't know if it's material or spiritual. Please help me to make the next steps. It can be a little bit more clear than that. But these ways, and just try it. I'm sure we were similar. I was like really shy. I think I told this example that I was a treasurer, not really wanting to be here, the treasurer. I'm a designer by Beruf, by profession. I was here. And I had to deal with the banks in German, and I didn't speak German. And for 6 months I tried. I thought, I can do this. I can overcome this. I can do it. I tried like this. I phoned this person. Da, da, da. You notice I, yeah? And one day it got too much. I went in front of the Lord. Please, Nishingadev, I can't manage this. Please, can you help me with this? Luckily, there were not many devotees there. Like came within 1 week to 10 days of a problem I was struggling for 6 months. Lord Nishingadev resolved it. And then you can get on with the rest of your life. Most of us are full with some material desires or not. When they get so far that we repress ourselves, that actually it goes really the other way. We don't want to know Krishna and this. It's not usually black or white. It's usually that something was not fulfilled along the way. And therefore, those in-between stages, we go over to the Lord. Oh? That's what I worked with. And I noticed it was this subtle part. I didn't want to surrender it over. Because if I want this chadar, it's my thing, and it's like this, and I don't want to set the Lord over, it's my chadar. It's like, offer it. Then I have to, you make a step. I live my experience. It was amazing how the Lord reciprocates afterwards. And then I'm like, oh, thank you. Or sometimes, of course, you're like, okay, I told you, Lord, take it away from me or give it, and you took it away? And I was like, okay, then I have to ask another prayer. If I'm not prepared for the answer, I have to change it, Yes, the Lord does that. So if you can, you don't need to ask. But sometimes there's very deep inner desires which are not fulfilled. And sometimes it is because actually we don't know it ourselves. Do we want it or not? I mean, the arrangements that the Lord made in my own life and I see in others is like that. But I also noticed, it's like if you say to me, Gopi Gita, or say, Samira, do you like black or white? And you say, well, obviously I like white. Yeah. But to the Lord, you go, no, I wait for the Lord to figure out what's best for me. But actually some parts that you know in your life what you want. Then when you tell me what you like, then I can give that to you directly. If you say up to you, then the Lord, I feel like this, the Lord has to wait. Well, what does she actually, is it this? No. And I've seen it so many, does she want? And as soon as you say, yes, I want, then it arranges. So sometimes I think it's okay to be conscious of the fact that we do have some desires, and there may be some material desires. There is like the desires that push us away from Krishna and material desires that don't hinder our path necessarily. Gopi Gita, I want a flat and I want a sofa there. It's not necessarily that you're going to get off Krishna consciousness because you want a cozy sofa to sit, having sat on the floor for 2 years. Like this. And there sometimes are things like that which we need and we help. And on the way, we can ask the Lord to help us not to go off the path with what we need. I felt like I was in the ashram and I was like, yeah, brahmachari. I lived out my suitcase for 5 months because I thought, yeah, and the window was leaking and I was like, yeah, the leaves came in autumn, the snow in winter, yeah, brahmachari, yeah. I was like this, but it was not so spiritual, It was just that I thought, okay, let me, try this. Actually, when you move away in your grahasta and you do things like, a little bit like have oh no, I'm in Maya, or what is this? But actually, most of us need some basic comforts just to be able to practice Krishna consciousness, Like as you get older, you would ideally like to live your whole life sitting, on the floor, but sometimes you need a chair. Hey, it doesn't take you off of Krishna consciousness, What is this? The quality of, we can so much be looking externally that we forget that actually it's not so important. Internally is what's happening. If you make so much austerity that your heart becomes cold, that your behavior with other people becomes so rigid and cold that they no longer feel the compassion or the mildness or the qualities that we have, then one has to change this. This is explained also in active devotion. Not so much austerity. It becomes cold. We become robotic, mechanical like this. It's a balance in life. It's not also like, hey, we do what we like, but a balance. Yeah. Yeah. Compassion. I just heard a short SoundCloud by on Satchidananda Swami said there was research to show that people who walk on a spiritual path are 80% less compassionate than those who don't walk on it. And on my own perspective, I think it was because we have such high ideals that when people don't reach it, we make judgments on them, like how are they and how can they? But it goes. And a friend said to me, and it was important, she said, I lived in a temple and I changed. And I thought, my God, yeah, sometimes something happens and one changes. And I remembered, like, as to being that person who was helping others, I was like, yeah, what's the problem? And this, actually, that compassion was starting to slip away, as opposed to all of Lord Chaitanya, the very heart and essence is compassion. If there is not the compassion, then what are we doing with our lives? Oh dear, compassion for the children now, till the husband comes to take. Do you have something to say? Something to say? No. Okay. Compassion. One of the 26 qualities, compassion and mildness. Yes, that's one now. But it's a nice topic. It goes like a Madaji song. Yeah. But it's nice. Thank you, lady. Hare Krishna, Shri Caitanya-Caritamrta ki jai.